Hey guys and girls, Board now back with Rachel McDonald. On this video, we're going to be looking at our best and worst episodes of Buffy Season 3. So we've agreed on a top 5 and a bottom 5, and we'll also be talking about our MVPs of the season. This follows on from our really lengthy Season 3 review, which you can now find on the channel. It's our most meaty Buffy review so far, our longest Buffy review, and who knows, that could continue. They might get even longer as we go on, but a bit of a compromise. Like if we were doing these lists individually, they may come out a little bit different, reflect our two tastes, and it was really hard, especially with the least favorite ones. Start off with the bottom 5. That makes sense. So at number 5, a perfectly good episode, and in another season, it would probably be considered a very good episode maybe, but that is Bad Girls. So it's a very heavy Faith Buffy centric episode. A lot of big developments. You've got a bit of a shock ending, but for me, it's not really that it's a bad episode at all. It's just in the standard of this season. I think it's just a lesser episode. I know you had a little bit of an issue because of the end scene and the way it plays out, but maybe some of that is more to do with how it's handled after this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this in our season 3 review, but I found this time around the writing of Faith's character, at least the start of her darkness, was not as convincing as it was when I've watched the show before. I've talked about how I don't like With Death was genuinely a complete accident, and yet they do tend to talk about it as if it was an outright murder. I also think with Bad Girls, I think the B villain is a bit weak. Balthazar, the Jabba the Hutt wannabe. He's not the most intimidating or scary or even that interesting villain. I mean, you have Monsters of the Week that can be quite charismatic and quite interesting, but he was just gross and yuck and just didn't really make much of an impact. So like you said, this episode is solid, as so many of the episodes in season 3 are, but I do find that if I was listing fantastic episodes of season 3, this one might not make that list. So I think that's why we put it here. It's just if all the other episodes in season 3 are 9 out of 10, this one's 7 out of 10. It's not that bad. It's just nothing particularly memorable in this one, at least not for us.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because it's definitely an episode that a lot of people remember because of certain iconic scenes.
Yeah.
The dance sequences is a good example of that, and that's something they would put on the credits later on. And also the whole, have, want, take sort of thing. Want, have, take, whatever, whichever. So stuff like that, and them in the store. And because it's one of the first episodes where you really get a big slice of Buffy and Faith together and them really clicking. So, but it's just funny that then it's in an episode which is solid, but maybe not a standout overall.
Yeah.
But that's Bad Girls anyway. Our number 4, which definitely follows on from Bad Girls, we said it's a little bit of an unofficial 2-parter, but it does continue the fallout, and that's Consequences. So once again, I think this is similar. I think it's a perfectly good episode, but it is a lesser episode surrounded by all these great episodes. But if you want to talk a bit more about this one.
Well, for me, this is really where they started to, for me, lose it a little bit when it came to Faith. Because again, they're talking about, and we talked about this in our review. They have Angel talk to her. And she's like, "Oh, you've had a taste of the darkness." It's like, no, she hasn't. She accidentally killed a guy she thought was a vampire. Okay, she hasn't gone all dark and twisted yet. And so for me, this episode didn't really the follow-on from the previous episode just was not as good because it wasn't working for me. We also have poor Xander getting assaulted in this episode, which then never gets addressed again. Poor Xander.
That's a really dark scene, isn't it?
It's a really dark scene. Faith almost starts to rape him, and then she starts to kill him instead. And it's it just never comes up again. And you just think if you reverse the genders, it just no. And
well, we but you know,
Mm.
I think we do want dark scenes, though, don't we?
Dark scenes are good. I just, like, if you're going to put in a dark scene, then you need to address the fallout of that dark scene.
Yeah.
And I feel that for Xander, life just goes on after this. Like, no one really ever mentions the fact that Faith sexually assaulted and tried to kill him, you know? Plus, we get a little bit of some callousness with regards to Xander saying that he slept with Faith. You know, Buffy's like, oh, she kind of treats the guys that she sleeps with as a big joke. And it's like, okay, that might be true. But again, imagine reversing the genders here. And, like, if someone had said to Buffy that, like, you know, the guy that she slept with for the first time only takes the girls as a big joke. It's just, there's some uncomfortable, I think, things surrounding Xander and his first time with Faith, I think, that doesn't quite... is not really followed up. So I think Consequences, again, it's one of those episodes where I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it, like that bad. It's fairly well paced, and we do actually get to see Wesley mess up enough that you do now get to see why Faith is making a turn. And I think that final confrontation between Buffy and her on the docks is quite effective. And the final showdown between, you know, the two girls and Trick. And of course, you do have that great final scene where you see Faith go to the mayor and say, you know, I hear you have a job opening, which obviously leads into that dynamic, which we love. But overall, like, when I think of Consequences, I don't really remember much from the episode. You know, it's just kind of there. Yeah, it's almost like they wrote Bad Girls and then they went, oh crap, we need to have an episode that deals with what happened in Bad Girls, but then they didn't really do anything interesting. So as we were talking off camera, if you compare it to, say, like another unofficial two-parter in season 2 of, like, Surprise and Innocence, they work so well together, you know, and in following, like, Innocence just follows everything that happened in Surprise and it works so beautifully, whereas Bad Girls and Consequences, for me, it just doesn't flow as well. So again, nothing, like, I wouldn't say anything really bad about the episode. It's just, as we said, season 3 has so many stellar episodes.
Episode where Mr. Trick got dusted, and you got that thing at the end. I'd forgotten that happened.
Yeah.
And I think with some of the Wesley stuff, I think the plot is a bit overstuffed at times in it.
Yeah.
It's not quite as tight as it could be. Another scene in it which actually bothers me a little bit, because it's the scene where Willow finds out about Faith and she goes off and cries, and it's a bit melodramatic and it doesn't really feel like it has a place in that episode.
There is a lot of debate amongst fans about that scene and whether or not Willow should be upset, whether it makes sense for her to be upset, because as a lot of people point out by this point, she's with Oz at this point. Yeah. She seems to be over Xander. She and Xander have already had their little thing and it's over. But then I remember what it was like to be a teenager, and you get very confused feelings and you're very messed up. And maybe it was just supposed to show that there is maybe still something a little bit between Willow and Xander, or it could be another thing, like similar to Cordelia, like, of all the people, why would you sleep with Faith? And we know she already has a jealousy thing, like, over like Faith stealing Buffy as her best friend, and, like, as she says later on in the episode, you know, I don't like Faith sharing my people. So it could just be more from that. But I do agree that it is very odd. And I remember when I was younger and I used to watch the episodes, I'd be like, come on, Willow, pull it together. You have a boyfriend. You and Xander aren't together. So yeah, it is an odd scene to have, and I do understand why a lot of fans don't like it and why there is so much debate surrounding that scene, because it was an odd scene to put in.
They are best friends, and they have been for years, and they've almost shared everything. And I think it's that idea of her, like, she wants Xander to be happy, but, like, just Faith as the choice for his first person to sleep with is like, that kind of upsets her. But yeah, for me it is a bit weaker. Like, it's a bit forced, that scene. And 3 is Dead Man's Party. So we both said this one has grown on us over time, and it's quite a meaty, like, character one. It grew on me because I could see both sides more as I rewatched it. Like, in the past, like, the Scoobies just annoyed me in the episode, and I was definitely more on Buffy sides. But the more I've seen, the more I can, like, overlook that. But it's just one where I think Most of the character stuff works, but it's the Monster of the Week gimmick, which isn't terrible, but is a little bit throwaway and
I was
isn't
just
quite as
thinking that.
strong.
Yeah,
So
I was just
maybe
thinking
that's
that.
the reason why it's on this list more.
Yeah.
And there's definitely like questionable like choices with characters and stuff you can maybe look at, but it's probably mostly then the gimmick of the episode is a little bit weaker.
Yeah, and then you've got Pat. And Pat brings
Pat's
down the
terrible.
episode.
Yeah,
Pat's
she brings
terrible.
down,
The only good part of her is when Buffy stabs her in the eyes at the end of the episode. But no, I was just thinking that before you said it, that this episode's got decent characterization, especially towards the end when we get the confrontation and we get everyone airing their grievances and we can understand everyone's side. But yeah, the zombie storyline is pretty weak. I mean, we do get a couple of good lines from it. Do you like my mask? Isn't it pretty?
Yeah,
it brings to dead Americans. But that's pretty much it. And I think following an opener like Anne, which we both quite like and appreciate and think is quite a strong opening, to then go to Dead Man's Party, it just feels like a bit of a step down. I've always had a fondness for this episode because I don't mind the conflict that comes out of it. And obviously you do have to address Buffy running away and you know what everyone went through when she was gone. But yeah, the B storyline is hard. And it can be hard to sit through an episode where the Scoobies are at each other's throats because we like it more when they're together and they're working. So to see them have this disconnect with Buffy can sometimes be a little bit grating to watch, which then makes the episode a little bit less enjoyable because we're having to, I mean, obviously you have to go through all this stuff to get back to the good times, but we don't always want to have to watch them all be horrible to each other. So again, another one where the episode is okay, not one of the best, not terrible, but just okay. And that's why it's ended up on this list.
If that Monster of the Week plot had been just a little bit stronger, then it's possible it might not be even in this list. Number 2 is Enemies, which we both find very frustrating as an episode. It definitely has good scenes and like the big climax of the episode plays out very well with the 3 characters. Angel, who we think has turned to Angelus, or at least that's what they're trying to make us think, Buffy and then Faith. So the spark between those 3 is really good in that scene, but it's just a really messy episode. There's like the whole plan they have to get the information out of Faith is very contrived. There's lots of question marks that it just feels like they didn't really think it through. Then there's not a thing that ties it together. It's the plotting really that doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, like Buffy not letting the Scoobies in is one of my things with it that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It seems like in a way she's putting them more in danger by not telling them.
And I always get stuck on the whole, and we talked about this in our review. It's like, how did Giles know that the mayor was going to get this guy at this time to desol Angel, and why could this guy do it, and how did it feels contrived. They never really explain exactly when they clue into the fact that Faith's gone evil. They never really tell us why they figured that out, what indication she'd given to tell them that they were evil. And then, like you said, then they don't let anyone in on their plan, which is just stupid. And so, you do get some good character work. And again, I mentioned this in the review. I do love that world's best actor, second best moment, because it's such a great drop. And, you know, obviously the first time you watch the episode, you don't know that Angel hasn't gone bad. But the episode is just it's too contrived. I think that's what we agreed on. That the plot doesn't make sense. It's like they wrote the end of the episode before they wrote the rest of the episode, and then they just wrote a bunch of filler to get to a certain point. But it is saved just a little bit by 2 words: miniature.
Oh, of course, I forget that's in this one. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah,
but definitely. Yeah, it's not a great episode. It moves the plot forward, definitely, and we do get, you know, the Scoobies finally confirming that Faith is evil. We learn about Graduation Day, we learn a bit more about the Ascension, but the way in which they give us that information and the way in which the storyline plays out is quite messy, especially for a show like Buffy, which is usually quite good when it comes to plotting and narrative. It's like they just got lazy this week and the writers were out sick or something and they just didn't know what to do.
That doesn't quite add up, or you question it, but you question it in a way where you're being encouraged to question it. Like you're questioning it in a way where you think there's different answers here, but there's logical answers. Like it's just which one you happen to fall on, or where there's room for you to interpret it. But in this case, you just get the feeling that the writers don't really know what they're doing, like the way they've written this, where it is literally just like loose plot ends. And number 2, which is enemies. Number 1 is Beauty and the Beast. So this is interesting because we didn't really talk about this one when we did the review. Quite easily, I think it is the weakest of the season. I actually don't think it's like a bad episode. I don't think it's a stinker. I think there's things I like in it. I like, for example, the guidance counselor, his character.
I do too.
It's a shame we only got one episode of him. I think they.
Well, he's black. He was
sadly, black in the 90s. He was doomed. So, but I did like the scenes we got with him. But so talk a bit about why you're not so keen on the episode.
Yeah, look, I did find this time around watching it, I did like certain parts a little bit more. Like Platt is a great character, and obviously Angel returns in this episode, which is a big plot point. But here's the thing, and we are going to talk about this so much more when we get to the later seasons of Buffy. The Whedonverse is not great at handling delicate subjects, all right? Now, and this episode obviously brings up the topic of domestic violence, and even more alarmingly, domestic violence amongst teens, which is something that's not talked about often, even though it does happen. We usually think domestic violence is reserved for adults, but it's not. It definitely happens among teenagers. And if you're going to do something like domestic violence, which is a very hot button topic and something that so many men and women go through every day, you need to do it delicately, and you need to do it in such a way that you are showing awareness to the victim. This episode does not do that. And it could be because they decided to like shove it into the last 20 minutes of the episode. Like, we don't really even find out about Pete and Debbie until about halfway through the episode. We don't know that they have that dynamic. So for it to suddenly just come out of nowhere, they're not subtle about it at all. I mean, we get to see Pete punched Debbie right in the face, which, I mean, I feel like this episode should come with a bit of a trigger warning. And then, of course, we've got Buffy and Willow and their not so mild victim blaming of Debbie. So I just think the whole thing was just terribly mishandled. Then you have like the overall theme of the episode. So the episode is called Beauty and the Beasts. And in the episode, we have 3 beauties and 3 beasts. We have Willow and Oz, Buffy and Angel, and Debbie and Pete. And the implication at the end of the episode seems to be that because Debbie couldn't control her beast, she died. And I do not like that implication. I don't think it's what they were necessarily going for, but given the title and given the way she and Pete are paralleled with Buffy and Angel and Willow and Oz, it doesn't sit right with me. So I just think overall this episode handles a delicate subject matter very badly. Debbie and Pete are just kind of blah characters anyway.
They're quite boring.
Yeah, so like you want to feel for Debbie, but you don't know her well enough to really... Like, again, these are characters that we've only just met this episode. Like, maybe if they'd been introduced along with Scott back in episode, like, 3 or something, then we might have got to know them a little bit better. But we just don't. We don't know either of these characters, so we just don't care. Scott Hope is as drippy as ever.
Well, we get more of him, so that's another minus.
That's always a bad thing, because, like... Again, I say, what is the point of this dude? Like, he's just serves no purpose. So, yeah, I think Beauty and the Beast, I think Mr. Platt's a really good character, and it would have been really nice to see Buffy actually receive some sort of counseling or some sort of therapy, because the girl could definitely use some support in that area. And I do like, you know, some of the Willow and Oz stuff is cute. And like, I do like the bit in the beginning where Willow's all like, I'm just getting, you know, Xander's like, I can handle the Oz full Monty. And Willow's like, well, it's for me. I'm just getting used to half a Monty. You know, I think some of that stuff's really cute. But overall, no, this is not a great episode. doesn't handle the subject matter well. It's kind of a bit of a boring episode as well. Like, not much happens. Like, even though a lot happens, it feels like not much happens at the same time, if you know what I mean. Like, it's just, So overall, I do not like this episode because I don't think it handles the subject matter well. And I also just think it's a bit dull. So that's why I think it's the weakest episode of this season. And it's probably one of my least favorite Buffy episodes overall because I just, do not, it's just, ugh.
Well,
just don't handle these topics if you are not prepared to deal with them correctly.
Yeah, well, it's similar to how I feel. I think that is the main problem with it. It does bring it up too late in the episode and then doesn't handle it very well. I think some of the stuff with, was his name Steve? Pete, wasn't it?
Oh, Pete,
the abuser. Some stuff with him mutating when he taken the chemical. That's a bit cheesy. It was
a bit odd,
a bit over the top and cheesy. But I agree with you. I think I disagree a bit about that Buffy and Willow scene with Debbie.
Fair enough.
I can see what you mean, but I don't think that's what they were doing. I think they were using it as a tactic to get her to talk, sort of thing.
Yeah,
I think
get that, and I do get that within the context of the scene, but as the episode as a whole, you have to look at how you're going to treat a domestic violence victim on screen, and it's very uncomfortable, that scene.
It is very uncomfortable. Yeah. But no, like overall, I think it's a very bland episode. Like it doesn't, and I think also it's a messy episode because they're treating Angel as a potential red herring. They're treating Oz as a potential red herring. And I think there's a little bit too much going on.
Yeah.
And it's not really an episode where there's a lot of standout Scooby moments. It doesn't feel like a vintage one for them as well. So, really bland and in quite poor taste. They obviously don't handle an important subject matter very well. And I do wonder if maybe this is just one of the drawbacks of network TV at the time. Then you've only got 42 minutes to tell a story. And when you have standalone episodes, you'll sometimes get these things being raised and then you obviously move on to on to the next story, Nightmares, because for me Nightmares tries to drop in a serious abuse style storyline.
And
to me it didn't really earn it, sort of thing.
And I can understand that. With Billy and the baseball coach and the abuse. I understand what you're saying, and you're right. It's one of those episodes where we're just going to put this in here, but we're not really going to take the time to address the hideousness of this crime. At least in that one, Billy got to face his abuser, and we had a happy ending. But no, I get what you're saying there, definitely. So, but Beauty and the Beast, I think most people would agree this is definitely one of the weaker, if not the weakest episode of season 3. I don't think I've really come across anyone who defends this episode much.
I think I might have done. I think there are some people, but you're probably going to get that with any episode that people normally don't like. You're going to get one or two defenders.
Oh yeah, I've heard people defend beer bads. So
Well, we'll get to that next season. Positive stuff. We're on to our top 5 agreed episodes of the season. So kicking it off at number 5, we've gone for an episode that we both think's quite underrated, and that's Choices. And we both agreed to have this on the list because it feels on a theme of the season, the theme of choices, them having their last year in high school before graduation, life choices and all that. It becomes a theme of Buffy and Willow both deciding on their choice of college, Willow actually making the big choice in the episode. It's in many ways is a Willow-centric episode because she's the one who gets kidnapped by Faith and the mayor, and she has some great scenes with Faith where she stands up to Faith and sort of gives a bit of a shot of truth in some ways. But it's really Willow's episode because she's the one who smuggles the crucial notes out, we get that really good standoff scene in the middle of the night in the high school. Obviously, Snyder cracks us both up in that scene. He's fantastic in it. And those really gross bugs are really, really something to behold as well. Very eerie sort of scene, and then we get the really charming scene at the end with Buffy and Willow. And of course, as again, because in many ways it is like Willow's episode, it's fitting then she makes the big choice at the end. And it's almost like she's gone through a mini sort of arc during the episode where her experiences of being kidnapped and stuff has made her choice that she wants to stay in Sunnydale. She wants to fight the fight with Buffy, and she wants to go to the same college as Buffy. So
one of my favorite Willow moments is that final scene where she and because I really like that she says to Buffy, she's like, I don't think you fight because you have to. I think you fight because you want to. And I do think that at least for the first 5 seasons of a show, that is very much a vital part of Buffy's character, is that, yeah, she might be the chosen one, but she also chooses to be the chosen one. She chooses to go into battle. We've seen her walk away from her destiny and come back. But yeah, this episode, Willow definitely shines in this episode. I think her, stealing the books of Ascension is really great, and I love it when like Xander's bragging at the beginning about all the different colleges that she got into is really cute. And we also get some good Faith stuff this episode. She gets her knife this episode, which I can't find it, but I have a replica of Faith's knife. I do. And for some reason, it's because we moved, in the last year, so it's been packed away in a box. I was going to pull it out, but I couldn't find it.
That's a shame.
I know. If I ever do find it again, I'll bring it out. But Stephen bought it for me for my 21st birthday. Oh, it was one of my favorite presents.
That's really good, yeah.
But we get Faith's knife in this episode, which obviously becomes, a bigger plot point later. Buffy and Angel have to face some truths about their relationship. The mayor giving them the speech. As you mentioned, that face-off in the cafeteria it's so great. I also love how the mayor comes in and he's all like, this is exciting, isn't it? Clandestine meetings. And like he's enjoying it. And of course, Snyder behind his chair, you people, why couldn't you have been dealing drugs like regular people? So yeah, and like we said, as far as the theme goes, thematically, this episode really fits into this season. This season I kind of describe as the coming of age Buffy season. This is the one where they're making their choices and they're thinking about their futures and they're thinking about what's going to be what happens after high school. We've all been there. We've all gone through high school and had that big, terrifying, like what happens when you're not in high school anymore and you have to go out and start being an adult. So I think this episode really great. Oz gets a fantastic moment. I love that moment where they're all arguing over whether or not to trade Willow back. Now, Wesley in that scene might come across as a bit of a dick, but I actually see his point. He's not wrong when he says it's one life versus thousands of lives. And this is something that Wes as a character actually carries with him, this pragmatism. You actually see it in Angel as well. And I think even Giles has a little bit of it. In fact, I wonder if Wesley wasn't there, if maybe Giles would have been the one voicing that concern. Because again, Giles, it's not that he doesn't care about Willow, but the Watchers, they're raised to put the world first and, to be pragmatic. So while I don't always love Wes in season 3 and sometimes think he sucks, in this instance I think he's making sense. But I love that moment where they're all arguing and Oz just calmly walks across and throws the magic container across the room. He just kind of turns around and he's just like, yep. And then Buffy's like, yep, make the call, Giles. And so just lots of really great character moments in this episode, and thematically really fits with the season. So
Willow theme for the next choice, so another even better Willow-centric episode, and that is Doppelgangland. And really, this is Alison Hannigan just going to town. It's a great like doppelganger plot where she gets to play these two very different characters. It's obviously a nice sequel to The Wish earlier in the season, where we first saw this alternative version of Willow. And it's a great honor episode. She has some memorable lines in it as well. And yeah, if you want to talk a bit more about it, it's a favourite of both of us.
Yeah, so I on my channel I have top 10 character centric episodes on Buffy, and Doppelgangland is in that list because I just think it is such a great character study of Willow. And when you watch the rest of the series, you realize how great a character study it is of Willow. And I said this in our review because Dark Willow, you initially think is supposed to be Willow's opposite, but she's actually not. She's Willow's darker half. She is literally what Willow is when she goes evil. And when we see Dark Willow, obviously we have a few callbacks like the board now and stuff like that. So I really like that. Obviously, also this episode, there is a theme of Willow thinking that she's too much of a doormat. You know, this is where Snyder bullies her into tutoring Percy. Yeah. You want us to breed? I want you to tutor him. And you know, the banana that I'm eating this banana, which we talked about in the review as well, you know. So obviously Willow's feeling like she's not assertive enough. So seeing herself as Vampire Willow teaches her that she can be assertive, but maybe she doesn't have to go all the way. Obviously, the scene with the two Willows is one of the best scenes in season 3. It's absolutely brilliant. I just love evil Willow essentially hitting on herself. Like, that is just hilarious. And, you know, obviously when they try to send real Willow in as Vampire Willow in the Vampire Willow getup, and just the way she's all like, oh, you know, I think I heard something outside. Why don't you go check on? She keeps sending the vampires out. Yeah. I don't know if we talked about it in our review, but there is a lovely bit of continuity in this episode that is picked up later. The woman that Willow drinks, Vampire Willow drinks at the Bronze, she drinks a woman called Sandy. Sandy turns up in season 5 as the vampire who bites on Riley. And I love that. I absolutely love little bits of continuity like that. So that's a little fun bit. But I think Doppelgangland, like you said, Anya gets some great characterization. This is where we start to get to know her character. I'm guessing this is when they had made the decision to transition Anya in and Cordelia out, because we do start to get a little bit more. One of my favorite Anya lines in this episode, I'm 1120 years old, just give me a friggin' beer. And, you know, I do like the end scene where she's, you know, talking to Vampire Willow, and then she realizes that it's actually like human Willow, and there's a great bit of comedy there. And yeah, just the episode all up, like, I know it is very Willow focused, and normally I wouldn't always say with a character this centered episode would be that great, but I know Allison just blows it out of the park, and she's just so good as both of the different Willows, and I just think it's such a great character study. I mean, I could probably write entire essays about Doppelgangland and the way it goes into Willow's psyche and the dark side of her and all the different, like, contradictions that are within her character, but I think this gives such a good building block. Like, if you watch the season 6 Willow Dark arc and then you come back and you watch this episode, you can really see the cues that they were taking from Vampire Willow, and it's really great. I really love this one. So I think that's I think it definitely earns its place in the top 5 best episodes.
Yeah, and I said this before, like, Willow is my favourite Buffyverse character, so this episode was always going to be made for me, and she really has some great character development at this point in the show. So it's wonderful. I love the opening scene with the spinning pencil, and that's really cute. A character-centric episode, because of course Sandra is a really good, in the Zeppo, really good character-centric. Yeah, so that's good stuff. So our number 3. And again, it's sort of the episode that links to this one. It's The Wish, which is a wonderful, this time more Cordy-centric episode. Yes. But it's a bit on the nose, but it's sort of saying be careful what you wish for, basically. Yeah. Because there's always a worse version of what you've got out there. You know, things can always be worse. And that's definitely a key message from the episode. But yeah, it's a wonderfully stylistic episode. I love how they go to town on the more post-apocalyptic, dystopian style feel to Sunnydale. And I said it in the review, but just this idea of how one small thing can have a ripple effect and change so many other things. And yeah, they do a great job of setting up this very distinctly different Sunnydale. A lot of style, a lot of great ideas, some really dark ideas. Great cameo by the Master. It was great to see him back. And Sander and Willow, Sander playing the bad boy, we both agreed was very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a great Cordy episode. Like, she really gets to show her full set here, and really, we see the character of Cordelia at its best. So.
A lot of shows do these types of episodes, the alternate world episodes, what would happen if, and I really think this is one of the better ones, because I think the way they show things playing out, you really can imagine this being completely plausible, because the master was supposed to rise on the harvest, and if he had risen, this is pretty much what would have happened. I kind of love this idea of like Sunnydale being like a vampire town. Like, I'm guessing in the Buffy universe there probably are other towns like this, like smaller towns that are more dangerous and have more vampires. And seeing the master again was great. Willow and Xander as vampires is great. And we talked about this in our review, but obviously that final fight scene where we see all the characters that we know and love kill each other is so hauntingly chilling and beautiful and eerie. And you have a scene where Willow and Xander kill Cordelia, just the horror of seeing all of these people that we love in this horrible setting that feels so realistic. Like, it really does feel like this is the Sunnydale that would have happened. I also love little things like the fact that Giles has formed, like this vampire squad called the vampire hunting squad called the White Hats and things like that. Like, you can see the town has had to adjust to what's happened to it. And Cordy is just fantastic in this episode. I love Cordelia Chase. She is one of my favorite Buffyverse characters. And rewatching the high school years this time around, just realizing how much depth she really has to her, even on Buffy. Like, I know everyone talks about how her character becomes so great on Angel, but it's like, no, she's already great on Buffy. They just build on what's already there. And this episode, like you said, be careful what you wish for, and it's a really great example of that. And I also think the ending is hilarious.
The ending's
after Anya's lost her powers and Cordy keeps making nastier and nastier wishes, and Anya's just like, done. Done. And it's just the frustration. So fantastic episode. I think one of the best alternate world episodes on any TV show. It's just done so well and so organically.
Number 2, another episode we both think is pretty much flawless, but it's the only ever Christmas themed episode, and it's definitely the Buffyverse riff on the Christmas Carol story. It's their own take on it, I think. But a massive Angel-centric story, a massive episode in a way, like you said, a backdoor pilot almost for his own show. Yeah. And that is immense. Wonderful
fantastic episode. I love Angel. Again, another character that I actually think has more depth on Buffy than we give him credit for, although he definitely gets more development on his own show. But like you said, like I've said before, this really does feel like the backdoor pilot, because it opens up a lot of themes for Angel and a lot of the struggle and the journey that Angel will go on his own show, dealing with his past as Angelus and dealing with the struggle of trying to fit into a world that he doesn't quite fit into, and trying to fit in with people and make connections. I love the shared dreams between him and Buffy. I think the Buffyverse does dreams really well, and I think that Buffy and Angel's shared dreams are fantastic. Could do without that horrendous mustache, but not everything can be perfect. And I love the Christmas Carol feel to it. I love the ghosts that come to see Angel. I love that we get to see Jenny Calendar again. And, she's so like menacing, like towards the end of the episode when she's trying to encourage him to kill himself. It's like, it's really eerie to see Jenny talking like that. The scene between Angel and Giles, we talked about this in our review of season 3, but that is a fantastic scene when Angel comes to Giles's apartment. And I particularly like when he sees Jenny standing behind Giles and he's like, don't you see her? And it's insane. We get to see Willie the Snitch again. Willie's always fun. I also love how, I forgot to mention this in our review, but Xander's trying to intimidate him. And at the end, he's like, kid, I thought you were very good. Very intimidating. I was really scared. And Xander's like, really?
That. That's really good.
Yeah. So, I think Amends is just, like you said, it's pretty much a perfect episode. And I know some people have issues with the magic snow, but I think for the episode, it works. And it's a Christmas episode. Yeah. Christmas episodes always have a little bit of magic to them, There's always something that happens in a Christmas episode that is a little bit out of the norm, because it's Christmas. It's the most magical time of the year. So for me, the snow worked. Plus, I always saw it as a higher power intervening to save Angel, which works within the show. There's kind of, you've
Yeah.
got the powers that be and everything. And, we talked about this in the review, but we love seeing all the people look at the snow. Xander out in his sleeping bag in the backyard, and Faith still with Joyce, and then Buffy and Angel just quietly walking through the streets is really beautiful. So, yeah, I mean, that's why I love Amends. I mean, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. But yeah, the ending I don't mind. The ending pays off because we've had a lot of dark scenes before it,
Yes.
and it doesn't really feel out of place. It's a very cinematic ending, and it definitely has. It's on theme with the episode, but it just has that magical Christmas feel, which you expect from this sort of thing because. I was recently, because I'm making my way through Quantum Leap, and they have an episode which is where they take the Christmas Carol structure and do it, and that has a similar ending where just something random happens with like the weather, and they just pass it off as like, I didn't do that. It's a miracle, like, and so whenever TV does this sort of episode, you're probably gonna have one moment where they do that, and yeah, I don't mind that. It gets her Barry on when she's trying to seduce Ross. That's absolutely hilarious.
That's brilliant.
It's so funny. It just gets a big laugh from me every time like Barry White comes on the music when Oz walks in, and Willow's really just trying too hard because she is playing the more almost seductive is what I'm trying to say. But that scene's hilarious, and seeing those characters get back together and they start to rebuild. That's a really nice part of the episode. Pretty much. I don't think I would take anything out of it.
I wouldn't. It's really good. Maybe the mustache, but aside from that.
Well, and his dodgy Irish accent, but obviously, because there's a number of flashbacks with Angel, even more in his own show. After a while, you just accept it. But yeah, it is a rotten Irish accent. But parts of America, you do have like people with Irish roots. So I'm guessing like if you're from New York, like that particular side of New York, it's probably easier for you to pull off an Irish accent. Number one, it's the perfect season finale. An even better season finale than seasons 2. I think we agreed on this. It is Graduation Day, part 1 and part 2. And this just caps off the season and the theme of the season, and also what the previous 3 seasons have all been building to so well.
Fantastic. I mean, everything culminates in these episodes. You get the climax of the Buffy and Faith tension that's been building. You have the mayor finally, with his whole big nefarious plan. You obviously have Graduation Day. And when we did our review, we talked about the prom and the Class Protector Award and how this episode follows that, the class banding behind Buffy. And I think it's just such a great payoff to these 3 years of high school. I spoke about this a bit in our review. It's this idea of the Sunnydale High class going, enough, we are done, we're going to fight, we're going to rise and fight, you will not take our graduation from us. And it's just it just feels so big and so powerful, and can sometimes get me teary or give me chills just to see when Buffy yells now and they all rip their gowns off and reveal all the weapons underneath. I mean, that's fantastic. But I mean, even the build up, part 1 is mostly about just build up to what's going to go down in part 2, and we get some great tension between Buffy and Faith, and of course there's that scene where Angel gets shot, and it culminates in that fantastic fight between Buffy and Faith, which is one of the best fights probably in the series, because there's not only is it a fantastically choreographed fight, I think it's really well shot, but it's a culmination of everything that's been building between these two for the season. And if you ship Faith and Buffy, this is obviously a fantastic scene for, like, you know, the Buffy shippers. And we have that great ending of Buffy crossing that line and actually stabbing Faith. And then I love seeing the mayor's reaction. We talked about that too, how devastated he is that she's, you know, that she's been injured. With the part where he tries to kill Buffy, and it's so chilling. And, you know, an angel comes in. All of that is fantastic. Buffy gets her own little kind of graduation rebellion when she turns her back on the council, which obviously will have repercussions going into seasons 4 and 5. And I think that's great. And part 2 has one of my favorite scenes in the entire series, which is Angel drinking Buffy, because I'm a big vampire fetishist and I love this kind of stuff. And like I've said before, if you have a vampire dating a human, sooner or later that vampire has to drink that human. I don't make the rules, people. This is just how it is. So I think that scene is fantastic. I mean, it's so well, like, shot, and the fact that it's, you know, it's likened to an erotic experience, and Buffy actually has a full-on orgasm while she's, you know, while Angel's drinking off her. It's just a fantastic scene, and just everything, about Graduation Day is so great.
Drama's really well done, and it is the combination of 3 seasons and the end of the chapter, and they couldn't have ended it any better. Once again, Snyder's a little gem in the finale. He's just so funny in the graduation, and it's a great way for his character to exit the show, because he's been one of those gems of characters.
Snyder's great.
Obviously, over the course of the show, they have 3 different principals, but he is by far the best one. I absolutely love that actor, how he's so slimy and entertaining, and just has so many great one-liners. And
Snyder's like the perfect love to hate character, you know? Like, they know exactly what they're doing with his character. Armin Shimon is fantastic in the role. And I feel like with Snyder, they find the perfect balance, you know? They don't overuse him, but they pop him in whenever they want some comic relief, or they want Buffy to give Buffy someone to kick against. And yes, at Graduation Day, like, I love I saw that motion, see me after graduation, you know? And then when the mayor's a big snake and he's like, this is not order, this is not discipline, this is my campus buddy, and then so, you know, it's a fantastic ending. And I think the final shot of the episode is fantastic too, just that slow pan to the yearbook and the you know, the saying the future is ours. And I mentioned this in our review, but I'll say it again. If Buffy had somehow been cancelled after season 3 or ended, this would have made a great series finale, because it wraps up those high school years so well that if the show had left off there, it really could have ended there. It was really fantastic. It just is such a great episode.
The mayor, as we said, is a standout villain, one of the best villains of the whole verse. So just his plot build into it, and uplifting to see the students all come together the way they do, and just these little stories within the wider story is, like, really well done. So very good stuff. Very good stuff. I think really up there for finales on this show. Like, it does. I think there's one other finale that might challenge it, but, you know,
I think we're thinking of the same one, but when we get to it, we'll see.
Our MVPs of the season, our individual MVPs. So if you want to give me yours first.
All right. Well, this might seem obvious, or, you know, like the obvious choice, but it has to be the mayor. I mean, he is such a great character, and he is such a great villain. Every scene he is in, Harry Groner just steals the show, you know? I love everything about the mayor, from his obsession with germs to, you know, the fact that he can be so holly jolly and be like, put on that politician's face and that politician's smile. And, you know, he seems to, like, be very concerned with public safety and all of this, but then he's planning to, like, you know, kill everyone. I love that bit where he pulls out, like, a notepad, and on his notepad it's like, Boy Scout meeting, PTA meeting, become invincible. And then, you know, just things like that. His dynamic with Faith is one of my favorite dynamics in the entire Buffyverse. I love the way it mirrors Giles and Buffy's relationship. And I love how they show that he genuinely loves her. You know, I mean, yes, there's definitely a little bit of manipulation going on, and you do have to wonder what would happen if she did step out of line. But the fact that he puts the ascension on hold to find her, for me, is such a such a telling moment. And also the fact that, like, Angel basically says faith is his weakness. That's what you use to beat him. And that
Yeah.
is what they use. They use her and her memory and the knife that Buffy used to stab her. So, yeah, the mayor is, I mean, I think everyone is fantastic this season. I actually had if the mayor wasn't there, I would have trouble trying to figure out who I think was
Yeah.
the best, because I think everyone this season is
He's on
fantastic.
good form.
Buffy grows a lot this season, especially after her initial bumpy stuff. Willow is fantastic this season. Again, she was my MVP for season 2, but she's just as good in this season. And of course, Faith. Faith is such a breakout character. And I think if I was still like younger Rachel, like 17, 18-year-old Rachel, I would have gone with Faith because I used to identify with her so much. But something about the mayor, and he just makes this season. Like, he is so fantastic. One of my favorite Buffyverse villains. So he's my MVP.
Yeah, mine too. I can agree. I'm going to go with the mayor as well.
Nice.
And
Nice.
it's definitely a toss up. I almost went for Buffy. Willow's up there as well, definitely. Yeah. I think one of the things, I think if Cordelia was in more episodes, she could have been a contender. Like you said, she's being phased out a little bit at this point. But what we get from her is very good. Obviously, The Wish is a standout episode. We get some more great banter with her and Xander, and a sweet sort of ending to their sort of friendship.
I do like the closure of their relationship.
So that stuff is very good. But best villains in Buffy are the more humanistic villains, and the ones where you can see a balance of light and dark. And there is something about the fact that he's literally a politician in this town, and he's so good at that facade. He's so good at playing it where you wouldn't expect anything sinister from him. But also, how we engage with him and Faith, how their relationship really takes off. And the actor is obviously wonderful. He plays it so well. And he's a standout villain. And a lot of times in this show, you need a really good villain to rub off against the good guys. It's a bit just to use a film example, how if you have a good Bond villain, it goes a long way to the movie being good. If you don't have such a good villain, it can drag the movie down quite a lot. So
you want a villain who's equal to your hero, who's going to be as dynamic and as engaging and going to feel like a real threat. And I think the mayor has all of that, and that's the other thing. He feels like a real legit threat. Like when they're building towards graduation day, the stakes feel very high, and he brings a lot of that menace to it. And and I think that Harry Groener does a great job of swinging between the affable family guy and the really terrifying guy underneath. Like, he has some moments like the "I'm going to eat her" line, where it's just like, oh yeah, like he might look all joking and funny, but you don't want to mess with him at all. So
supporting villains or one-shot villains, because there's a lot of good ones actually, or certainly, as we said, we praised Mr. Trick a lot.
Mr. Trick is great.
He's like a good B-like villain. He as the pairing with the mayor. I mean, obviously, Ethan Rain shows back up. He debuted in season 1, but it's season 2. Sorry, it's always good when he shows up.
Yeah,
but there are some. I mean, I think I enjoy Bovarsar more than you, however you say his name, but I accept he's pretty throwaway as well. But because he is such a Jabba the Hutt style thing, and the bad guy and the actor really goes for it. He hams it up.
He does. So I will give him that.
I do enjoy that. Coming episode, you get the cowboy coming back, and he's obviously much better than in Bad Eggs.
And as Mr. Trick says, you have spiny-headed demon things.
Yeah, that's really good. But
I actually think season 3 seems to have less monster of the week because it is so focused
Yeah.
on the overall plot. So yeah, it's we're definitely moving more into arcs than monster of the week, because obviously season 1 was pretty much all monster of the week, and season 2 we had at the
There's a
beginning.
fair
But
bit, isn't there?
yeah, I feel like they went into
Mm.
season 3 with a real plot and a real sense of narrative and purpose of where they
Yeah.
wanted to go, and that's why I think the season is so tight and is so cohesive, because they really seem to have planned this one out, and it really shows. It's fantastic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just remembered, of course, one we praised, Gwendolyn Post. I think she's a really good.
Oh yes.
So if I was just going to say, give an award for like a one-off great villain, I would go with her. Like
I
I
think so
really
too.
enjoyed
Yeah,
her a
yeah.
lot.
She was really good and very manipulative and very good at like sneaking in and creating dissent. And I
Yeah,
think
she's
that
got
worked
some
really
great
well.
one-liners. Yeah, so we
Mm,
both enjoyed that episode. So okay.
yeah.
So that's our special video on season 3 where we picked our best and worst characters. Oh, sorry, episodes. If you want to let us know, would you agree with our list? Would you go
Mm.
in slightly different directions? Let us know in the comments below. Also, let us know who your MVP of the season, favorite characters, maybe least favorite as well, if you can think of any. But do let us know. Give us some feedback on this video, and we'll of course return soon with season 4. We'll continue our season review style videos, working our way through, having much to talk about again in season 4. There's lots to debate in that season, so
Yeah, season 4 will be very interesting.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting to that. So
Me
that'll
too.
be coming soon. You can look out for other TV reviews from me and Rachel. We did The Haunting of Hill House a while back, so all of those episodes are on the channel now. I do individual reviews like I've been doing The Last of Us. You can see me tear apart the latest episode of Star Trek Picard because
I saw that.
that returned this week. What a stinky
You were
return
not
that was.
happy, were
No,
you?
I really wasn't happy. So if you want to enjoy me slaying that, then you can check out that review on the channel now. Fingers crossed it gets better next week, but we'll see. So, okay, Rachel, why don't you promote your channel?
Thanks. So, guys, you can follow me. My channel is Rachel McDonald, video essays on TV shows and movies. I do have quite a bit of Buffy content on there, so head on over and follow me there. My Tumblr is also linked through there, and I spend a lot more time on there because I'm very sad and have no life. So, Keith usually puts a link in the description, so please come and follow me everywhere.
Okay, thanks, guys. Keep watching Buffy and look out for our season 4 review coming soon. Take care. See you guys soon.